My wife has been working on a big project for about 5 months now. It wasn't something she was doing for herself, but she was in charge and responsible for its success. This project was crucial for her company, Lockhart Solutions. The past 5 months have been especially challenging for her because of the intense demands. It wasn't just vital for her, the entire company was depending on it. If this project didn't succeed, Lockhart Solutions could be in serious trouble. Emily, my wife, earned a bachelor's degree from Crestwood College and an MBA from Turlington School of Business. She was, without a doubt, the sharpest person in our family. I, on the other hand, I started working as a mechanic right out of high school. I've been doing it for 23 years now. I like the work and the pay is decent. It helped us cover Emily's college expenses and raise our 3 kids comfortably. We didn't live extravagantly, but we were getting by just fine. Our kids have all moved out, and financially, we're doing well. We were doing well. Emily got pregnant 4 months after we got married when she was 19. In the early years, we stayed with my parents, who had a big house with plenty of space since my 3 siblings had left home. This worked well because we had built-in babysitters while Emily completed her first year of college. 2 pregnancies stretched her 4-year degree into nearly 7 years, but she made it work. Emily worked on her degree for nearly 7 years, but she was determined to make it happen. I always had a steady job and could count on extra hours if we needed the money. After Emily graduated from Turlington, we rented our own place. She received job offers from several major firms, but they all required us to relocate. I was okay with the idea, but Emily wanted to stay close to her roots. That's why she opted to work at Lockhart. The job paid well and, more importantly, gave her significant responsibility and a clear path to climb the corporate ladder. Emily was dedicated and hardworking. Her big presentation was set for Thursday at the Kingsley Hotel in downtown Langston. I decided to take a few days off to support her in any way I could, though in the end all I managed to do was make her a meal when she got home. I didn't know much about her work, nor did I have much interest in it. High-level corporate stuff just wasn't my thing. Business people from Europe, Asia, and South America were flying in for this event. The company covered their travel expenses and put them up at the Kingsley Hotel. It was a costly affair. From what Emily hinted, the company might have been stretching its budget a bit thin. Her presentation was critical. I didn't know much about her work, and I wasn't that interested. I just wasn't into high-level corporate stuff. Business people from Europe, Asia, and South America were flying in for this event. The company covered their travel expenses and put them up at the Kingsley Hotel. It was a costly affair. From what Emily hinted, the company might have been stretching its budget a bit thin. Her presentation was critical. Everything seemed fine until Tuesday evening. Emily came home in a new outfit, a slate gray suit with a crisp white blouse. She meticulously laid everything out on the bed in the guest room, preparing for the upcoming days. She was generally organized at home, but especially meticulous when it came to work. I didn't see why she needed it. Her fancy underwear, but I kept my thoughts to myself. Besides her suit for the presentation, she had packed several cocktail dresses for the social events planned around the presentation. I usually steered clear of these kinds of events, but I felt like I should go with her if she wanted me to. She thanked me for the offer but assured me it wasn't necessary. She had already got all the materials and equipment she needed. She packed everything in the trunk of her Civic and drove herself to make sure everything was in perfect order. Emily had the entire day on Wednesday to prepare and the evening to socialize with the guests. She was so competent at what she did that I felt I should just stay out of her way once everything was ready. She checked and double-checked her work. All she needed now was a hot shower and a good night's sleep. My mistake was, while she was showering, I couldn't resist looking through her things on the bed. I thought I was just helping by organizing them, but I ended up making a mistake. I moved some items around and found a small white envelope from a pharmacy we don't usually go to. Inside was a prescription for 10 pills. The name was unfamiliar, Nuruz, and the instructions were confusing. They said to take one pill if necessary. The pill and then a second pill. 12 hours later, I figured it might be something for anxiety or nerves, but the instructions didn't make much sense. The prescription had been filled in her name just the day before. I quickly put the envelope back as she finished her shower. I decided to look up Norris before asking her about it. Of course, bringing it up would mean admitting I'd gone through her things, which was a dilemma I was facing. I wasn't keen on facing Emily while she got ready for bed, so I went to our home computer and searched for Norris. 10 minutes later, I joined her under the covers, but sleep wouldn't come. I lay there wide awake, wondering why my wife needed a prescription for an emergency contraceptive, especially since I'd had a vasectomy nearly 8 years ago. The next morning, I got up early but didn't feel rested. I took a long walk, hoping I headed back home, unsure of what I might say or do when I got there. Our eldest son Liam joined the Army right after high school and was now stationed in Fort Hood. Our daughter Maya got married last year and moved to Denver. Our youngest Noah just started college in Florida, which left just Emily and me. I missed the kids, but looked forward to growing old with my wife. She was the only woman I'd ever been interested in, and now it felt like everything was falling apart. If Emily was having an affair, she hid it well. I never checked up on her. I never looked at her emails or phone records. I had no reason to. I had no idea what she was doing at work or afterward. I trusted her completely. "Mike, where have you been? Do you want some eggs or something?" "No, just coffee." Feeling very chatty. "What's wrong, honey?" "It's just for 3 days. You can come if you want, but you'll probably be bored stiff." "No, I really don't want to go, but I hate the idea of you being alone. I worry when you're not around." "That's sweet of you, but I'll be fine. I'm not leaving the hotel at all today. I'll make sure the conference room is ready. Tonight, I'll mingle with the clients. Tomorrow, I'll be so busy. I won't even have time to eat. I'll be home as early as possible on Friday. I promise we'll have a fantastic weekend together." That all sounds good, but you can't blame me for worrying. I'm just a mechanic with a beautiful, successful wife. Sometimes I feel like you're more focused on your career than on us. Stop it, Mike. I've always respected what you do. I've never said otherwise. You're a great husband, a wonderful father, and an excellent provider. Don't ever forget that. I finished my coffee as she cleared the table. "Should I call you?" She was really thorough, just like she was with everything else. She said it would take her about 3.5 hours to get to the Kingsley Hotel. I stood on the porch watching her drive away. I didn't mention the pills. I spent the rest of the morning on the porch worrying more than I ever had before. I felt out of place and like I didn't belong in her world. I was just a regular guy with a regular job, and she was out there. I should have seen it earlier. I felt like a fool. The best suit I owned was a blue blazer with some old slacks. At least I had a few ties, even if they were a decade out of date. I had just finished getting dressed when the phone rang. "Hey Han, just wanted to let you know I made it here okay. The drive wasn't too bad. Traffic wasn't too heavy. It was fine. I'll call you tonight. I've got to go now. I'm in room 9. 14 Emily, I could stay at my parents' or my brother's tonight if you want to call me on my cell, okay?" Her cell phone rang. "Love you, I had to go." I took my time getting to Langston. I didn't head straight to the Kingsley. I stopped first to grab a steak and cheese, knowing it was going to be a long night. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I parked in the hotel garage and just sat there waiting. At some point, I had to go inside, but I couldn't decide when. Then my cell rang, pushing me to make a move. "Mike, I just wanted to let you know everything's settled. I'm going downstairs now to meet some people and have dinner. You didn't forget anything, did you?" "Everything's fine. I've got everything in my room for tomorrow. Do you need anything?" "No, Mike, relax. I'm turning my phone off. I'll call you tomorrow morning. All right, it chuckled. Have fun. It's not fun, Mike. It's work. I didn't look too out of place in the lobby. The place was bustling with people, so I could blend in easily. I picked up a brochure that showed the layout of all. I wandered through the hotel rooms, stopping to look around at the crowd. I had no clue what I would do if Emily saw me. I guess I'd figure it out if that happened. I found an event board listing all the rooms being used by different groups. Lockhart Solutions didn't have any rooms reserved for Wednesday night that caught my attention. Emily had said she wasn't leaving the hotel, but now I wasn't so sure. There were 3 dining rooms: family, casual, and fine dining. Emily wasn't a big fan of any of them. I decided to check the casual room first, as I don't usually dine with kids. It took me about 5 minutes to confirm that she wasn't there. I had better luck in the fine dining room. There, tucked away in a cozy booth in the corner, was Emily. She was wearing a sleek black cocktail dress with a plunging neckline and pearls. She looked stunning, and her companions seemed to agree. I knew some of the people Emily worked with, but he wasn't one of them. He looked familiar, but I couldn't quite place him. I recognized him, but I couldn't quite place him. The room was full, so I easily crossed over to a table. The candles in the small glass holders were a bit much for me, so I blew mine out and told the waiter they were bothering my eyes. I ordered my usual chicken dish and settled in. The waiter topped off my coffee for the 3rd time. Excuse me, the guy at the table over there looks really familiar. Do you know who he is? That's Charles Evan Clark. He's on the city council and is expected to run for Congress in a few years. Is that his wife with him? She's very pretty. This is the first time I've seen her. He usually reserves that table for special ladies. I just smiled and asked for the check. I had never seen Emily so captivated by a man before. She hung on his every word like he was something special. They weren't doing anything inappropriate, but it didn't look strictly professional either. When I left, they were finishing their 2nd bottle of wine. I now understood why she packed her fancy lingerie. I found a spot in the lobby where I could sit unnoticed. About 10 minutes later, they emerged from the restaurant holding hands as they made their way to the elevator. I watched the floor indicator closely. The elevator stopped on the 3rd floor, which was a good sign. It meant she hadn't taken him to her room. But it was a bad sign when the elevator didn't go to the 9th floor. That meant she went to his room. In case I was wrong, I sat in the lobby watching the elevator for an hour. People came and went, but Emily wasn't one of them. I got my empty suitcase out of the car and headed to the front desk. Even though I could prove I was her husband, it took some convincing to get a key card. They finally relented after calling the room, but no one answered. Finally, I was on my way to room 914 with the key card. I didn't even turn on the lights at first. I just sat in the dark room for over an hour. It wasn't hard to ensure she wouldn't come back. First, I packed all her clothes and personal belongings. I didn't leave a thing behind. I checked. I found the package of Norris with 10 pills inside on the dresser, laid out neatly. She'd also left behind all the materials she needed for her presentation. I started packing them up. There were 30 specially bound promotional folders and another 25 regular ones. I put them in the suitcase next. I also packed the digital projector and her laptop. I took her purse and cell phone, which she'd left behind. All she had with her was. I looked around the room, making sure I hadn't missed anything. Once I was satisfied, I left her car keys and my wedding ring on the dresser. The room was completely empty. I took the elevator to the parking garage. I had no trouble carrying the 2 suitcases. 20 minutes later, I was on the expressway heading north. It was well past 3 o'clock. When I woke up, I had no idea how much time had passed. About an hour later, my cell phone rang. It was the Kingsley Hotel's number. Mike? Yeah, where are you? I'll be back at the house soon. That's all I could say. The line went silent. Salespeople have an old saying, the first one to speak loses. It felt like an eternity before she finally responded. "Mike, I'm so sorry." She didn't ask anything. She just hung up. To give a presentation that could save her company and secure her a promotion, I stashed the suitcases in the attic of the garage. Emily never went up there and wouldn't think to look for anything there. Of course, by then I knew it didn't really matter anymore. First, I gathered up all my clothes and personal belongings. Like most guys in my line of work, I had my own tools. It's practically a job requirement. I swung by the shop, loaded my gear into the Outback, and picked up my last paycheck. By that time, the banks were open, so I didn't have to do anything tricky with the finances. Any tricky financial stuff, I just withdrew all the money from my accounts. I stopped for lunch in Hagerstown, Maryland. I had enough money to get by for a few years, but I knew I'd be looking for work sooner rather than later. Emily and I were similar in that way. I found comfort in work. I was going to miss her. I spent a couple of hours exploring the Luray Caverns before renting a room near Whiteville. I didn't know what I was going to do on Saturday. I found myself at the Chattanooga Aquarium watching all kinds of marine life. I spent hours just relaxing and saw marine life I'd never seen before. I bought an annual pass to the aquarium, and by dinner I had found a place to stay, a mobile home in the park. It wasn't fancy, but it was furnished and cheap. I didn't need much. First thing Monday morning, I was going to find a job. A good handyman can always find work, especially if he's willing to put in the effort. I figured I could stay under the radar until it was time to renew my driver's license or car tags. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. I gave Maya a call on Sunday afternoon. I felt like I should let her know what was going on, but Emily had already filled her in. She was upfront with Maya about everything that happened. She admitted she cheated, that I caught her, that I left, and that she lost her job. I felt bad that she lost her job, but that was the price she had to pay. I asked Maya to let Liam know the next time she talked to him. I also told her I'd check in about once a month to see how things were going. By noon the next day, I had a job. It was just a short walk from the trailer park, and there was a Waffle House about halfway there. What more could a man want? I wasn't sure how they handled the paperwork, but I was making $25 an hour, no questions asked. I was happy, and they were happy. I wouldn't even need to dip into the money I'd brought with me. About 2 months later, Maya let me know that Emily had moved out of the house and was living with her parents. Maya didn't know much more, but she was glad I was settled and doing well. Liam called me from San Diego to let me know he was heading that way. He was working as an avionics technician on an aircraft carrier. He tried to explain what he did, but it went over my head. I never really understood technical stuff. Both of them were careful not to speak badly about their mother, and I appreciated that. After that, life went on as usual. I started talking to Maya at least once a week, and Liam and I began emailing regularly. Maya kept in touch with Emily, but she didn't share much about what her mother was doing or where she was. I never filed for divorce, and it seemed like Emily hadn't either. I got a Tennessee driver's license and updated the tags on the Outback. I started going to a local bar a couple of times a month and even ended up having a few flings. 2 different women took turns becoming my regular nighttime companions. They weren't looking for anything serious, and neither was I. It worked out well for everyone involved. That was a long time ago, and gradually I forgot about Emily. Eventually, the Outback started giving me trouble. I hadn't kept track of how long it had been. The car had over 200. I was pondering all this over a beer one day when it hit me. It had been nearly 5 years since I left home. I had stayed in close touch with both kids by that time. Maya had 2 kids of her own and was eager for me to visit. Liam almost married a Thai woman but backed out at the last moment. I usually worked 6 days a week and spent Sunday recovering from Saturday night. There was no good reason for someone to be knocking on my trailer door at 6 o'clock. 12 a.m. On a Friday, their rudeness was met with a half-naked man answering the door. Day-old boxers are pretty gross, and the lady at the door, judging by the look on her face, agreed with me. She turned away, but her companion didn't seem bothered. Normally, I would have put on pants, but at a time like this, visitors just annoyed me. We're looking for Mike Collins. I'm Dave Simmons, and this is my wife, Mara. We have a problem, and we're hoping you can help us. I don't work under moonlight. If you need something done on your car, you'll have to go to the shop. This was met with blank stares, and then finally the thing is, it's not about your job. It's more of a personal issue. Can we come inside the trailer? It looked like a mess. I rarely had guests, so I rarely cleaned. Even my girlfriends insisted we go to their places. Be my guest. Let me throw on some pants real quick. I left the bedroom door. I opened the door just to show them what a welcoming host I am. I also threw on a shirt. Want some coffee? It'll only take about 10 minutes. I moved some things off the couch so they could sit down. There was no answer to the coffee offer. We have an adopted daughter who's almost 5 and a 2-year-old. 1 year. We're looking for someone who needs a bone marrow transplant. We're hoping you can help us. We're willing to pay you if necessary. I have bone marrow, but I'm not selling it. I was being a wise guy, and I suddenly realized it. These people were serious. They had a real problem and were looking for excuse me. I'm sorry for interrupting. Please continue. Our best chance of finding a donor is the next of kin. You're our best hope. Wait a second. I don't mean to sound rude, but I think you've got the wrong guy. When was your daughter born? She'll be 5 in July. Mara Simmons spoke for the first time and she sounded sincere. I hate to break it to you, but I had a vasectomy over 15 years ago. There's no way I could be her father. Then why is your name on the birth certificate? I can't answer that on her birth certificate. Maybe you should ask her mother. That statement was met with silence. I felt bad for these folks, but I didn't know how to help them. What's the mother's name? Emily Elise Collins. I was at a loss for words. Maybe I shouldn't have taken those pills from her, but then again, if I hadn't, these people wouldn't have a daughter at all. I thought I was done with grief, but here it was again. My memory of Emily with that politician in Philly came flooding back just when I was starting to forget it all. I understand now, and I apologize for my rudeness and insensitivity. I'll do everything I can to help you. Why can't Emily donate the bone marrow herself? Medically, she can't. Why not? She's the mother. She should be a good match. She is a match, but she's too sick. The doctors refuse to even consider her as a donor. She's been diagnosed with liver failure and given less than 6 months to live. I don't understand how that can be true, given that she was always in perfect health. I also don't see why liver disease would prevent her from donating bone marrow. The hospital won't accept her consent. Are you saying there's something wrong with her mind? They both looked at me in silence. They knew the answer but didn't want to say it. I didn't want to push them further. 10 minutes ago, I didn't care. I'd been thinking about these people, but now I felt the need to protect them and help them. How did this happen? Could any of my kids be a match? Maybe, but we thought you were our best hope. Why don't you go after your real father? We thought it was you. We have no idea who else it could be. Emily didn't mention anyone else. In fact, she wasn't in any condition to explain anything. Mara added that most of our information came from the adoption agency. I needed to make some coffee. I'll just take a quick break. I left my guest sitting there while I brewed the coffee. It only took a few minutes, and I took a bathroom break while it brewed. I tried to be discreet. I'd already embarrassed Mara, so I needed to get away from the conversation. I'll make you a deal. If I tell you who your daughter's real father is, you have to promise me you'll go after him relentlessly until you get what you need. What are you talking about? Your daughter's father is a well-known politician in Virginia. He'll probably deny everything and use his legal resources to fight you. But if you push hard enough to make him admit the truth, you might be able to pressure him into getting the bone marrow transplant that your daughter needs. I'm not sure how we can pull that off. I'm not a politician, just a mechanic. But I think your best bet would be to leverage the media, including television, radio, newspapers. Politicians will go to great lengths to avoid bad press. Do you have any connections who could help there? Expressions brightened. I must have struck a chord of hope. I think we can manage that. So who is he? Dave asked, determination in his voice. Charles Evan Reed. He's running for the U.S. Senate. I'd bet anything that he'll steer clear of a scandal. The coffee was ready, but Dave and Mara were eager to head back. Before they left, I gave them Maya and Liam's contact info in case they needed backup. I was sure my kids would pitch in if needed. I also asked them where Emily was living. I figured I'd be in Pensacola before they even made it back to Westchester. I got a haircut and picked up a new shirt. Emily had shattered my life, but for some reason I still wanted to look decent when I saw her. Her place was another trailer, but this one was a newer double wide. Her old Volvo was parked out front, flat tire and busted windshield and all. The woman who answered the door wasn't Emily. She looked like she'd been through a lot, probably in her late 40s or early 50s, and the lack of makeup didn't do her any favors. I barely had time to open my mouth before she spoke. Well, if it isn't Mike Collins. Never thought I'd see you around here. I had to fall back on the old cliché, you've got me at a disadvantage. Sherry walked into the room. Honey, can I get you a beer? No thanks. I'm here to see Emily. She got a profit share for her 401k and other benefits from Lockhart Solutions after being laid off. This helped her get by for a while. Eventually, she took a job at a local garment factory in the shipping department, where she met Sherry. Sherry rented a room from Emily, and every penny Emily earned went toward alcohol. She started with wine and eventually turned to the cheapest liquor she could find. Her drinking cost her the job, and she lived off her savings and never dated or socialized. Sherry stuck around, paying the bills and buying groceries that Emily wouldn't touch. Over the course of 3 years, she drank herself to death. Surprisingly, Emily had left a will, and she left me the double wide and the Volvo. Sherry told me that Emily was so consumed by guilt over what she had done that she just gave up. She didn't try to prevent the pregnancy, nor did she consider ending it. The adoption was she'd set it up months before the baby was born. She never went back to a regular job, just doing a few odd jobs here and there, which she barely managed. Sherry said Emily seemed to have no drive or purpose left. She talked about me often but was too ashamed to reach out. Maya had given her my number, but she never called. It was as if her one mistake had destroyed her more than it did me. I stayed in Pensacola for a couple of weeks. I sold Sherry the trailer for $8,000. I managed to get $1,000 for the Volvo, and just 2 days later I was in Westchester visiting Dave and Mara. Charles Evan Reed tried to resist, but Dave and Mara applied enough pressure to make him crack. He demanded DNA tests, which confirmed he was the father, to protect his image. He reluctantly agreed to the bone marrow transplant, and thankfully it was successful. However, his political and personal life unraveled quickly. His poll numbers plummeted. And his party replaced him with another candidate just months before the election. His wife filed for a very public divorce, which didn't help his situation. Now I'm heading to Dallas to see Maya and meet my grandkids. I'm bringing Emily's ashes with me. I'm not sure how long I'll keep them around, probably just long enough to say my final goodbyes. Thanks for reading today's story. Please like it, share your thoughts, and don't miss out on a new story every day.